Hi everybody, welcome to the webinar here at Fountain today, SEO in restricted industries. My name is Nick Cahoe, that's me, that's what I look like. I have 7 years of experience in SEO within the healthcare industry, and I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to UK digital marketing regulation within pharma. And I've worked extensively with the regulators within that industry.
Hi, and I'm Amelia. I've got about 15 years experience in digital marketing, and more recently, well, I say recently, more recently 10 years experience within restricted industry, SEO, predominantly finance and healthcare. And my SEO specialisms include technical SEO with a special interest in international SEO.
So we're going to go through a little bit of an introduction into what we mean when we talk about regulated industries. So let's just quickly get that slide up. So basically, this is just a selection really of what is in a fairly large list of, at least here in the UK, what are or can be considered regulated industries. So the main one we've already discussed, we've already mentioned a little bit, is healthcare and pharma. That's where my background and experience is in, and that's regulated by the MHRA, and the PAGB are known as a trade body within healthcare and pharma. But there's also alcohol, which is obviously has laws that restrict its marketing activities, and that's policed by the ASA. And CAP and Ofcom. Gambling is the Gambling Commission. Finance, which is something that you have experience in, which is governed by the Financial Conduct Authority. And again, there's also stuff within law that people who work within the finance industry or market within the finance industry can and cannot say. There's high fat, sugar and salt foods, which of course recently, over the last sort of 10 years or so, has become a regulated marketing sector because of the laws that have been placed upon it. And environmentally friendly products is an up-and-coming one as well, because that's there's certain laws now where if you make statements about how environmentally sound your products are, you must back that up. And there's all sorts of other things that you can and can't say as well. But like I say, that's not an exhaustive list. There's lots of other industries as well that I'm sure some who are watching this or will be watching this will know of or work within. So let's get straight into what we're going to be talking about today. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of quickly go through what SEO basically is and what it does, how it's a little bit different to regular marketing. And then we're going to look at how that impacts regulated industries. So let's first look at what marketing is. Now, there's lots of books and decades of people researching what marketing is, what marketing does. But if you distill it down, and this is just me distilling it down into its purest form, what we want to do is we want to create the message that we want to get out. We want to communicate the message. We then want to have that message received by our consumer or user or audience. And then we want the person to then perform the action. We want them to do it almost immediately, or we want them to do it until they need to do it, so until they sit on it, until it's required. Again, like I say, it's pretty much more complicated marketing than that, as we all know, but really that is essentially what marketing is all about. The thing with SEO though is this isn't really what SEO does. SEO is kind of the other way around. So the person is looking for something, so the user or the audience is looking for something. They will then search for it in their own words and on their own terms. The website will then provide the content, which is then, it explains back to them what their own words are or their search term, and it's also accessible to them. And then that person then makes that conversion or remembers it for next time. Again, much more complicated than that is SEO, but basically that really is what we're trying to achieve. So SEO is an upside down process in terms of marketing. It's actually backwards as to what we are usually used to within the marketing industry. This is something that's really important to understand when we look at understanding it. with regards to regulated industries. So if we look at an example of a regular marketing path, we have a hamburger deal or a new product to McDonald's. McDonald's put up a billboard and a tube station, obviously a form of outdoor advertising. It's seen by a person who's waiting for a train. The person orders Deliveroo immediately for when they get home, if they're like me and they're really hungry and desperate, or they remember it for the next time they are hungry. So they see the message and then that's what happens. If you take the same example and flip it around for the way that we talk about with regards to SEO, that person may be looking for a deal on a burger meal, not necessarily specifying McDonald's. So they search for burger meal deals online, and then the McDonald's website provides it. It has what they're searching for in their own words, and also perhaps as well, it's easy to make a purchase to get that burger meal to boot on their website. So they then buy that burger meal, or they remember for next time. So where is the value in doing this? This is it's a bit different to what we used to do in marketing. It's quite complicated. So where's the value in doing this in terms of SEO? Well, the reason is because this person here, the person who is buying the hamburger, having searched for it, our person we've found who's searching for something we provide, is extremely valuable to us as marketers, as they are actively looking for us in some way. They are far more likely to be a goal converter or do what we need them to do if they find us, because they are actually wanting to do it. And this is worth far more than someone who has been advertised to indiscriminately. Now, that's not to say that other marketing methods are wrong or they don't do what they need to do, but when you look at it from a realistic standpoint, I think we all know the old adage that organic usually performs better than any other sort of form of marketing, and this is what happens here. So, the question I ask is, where would you rather a million people see your billboards or a million people find you by seeking out what you provide, who are already trying to find you or find what you do? So how is this all relevant to restricted industries? Well, our marketing path when it comes to restricted industries or licensed industry is usually along these lines. It's a little bit different from everyone, but this is essentially what happens. We create our message. We have a message that we want to get out. Then we need to get it approved in terms of regulation. It needs to be legal in order for us to put that message out there. So we need to change the message to be legal, or we might get lucky and we might have the message approved straight away, although once you get used to working within the regulated sectors, hopefully you'll then do that a lot more often without having to continuously change it, because you get used to it. The message is then received, and then we have the person performing the action we need them to do straight away, or they sit on it until required. So there's a real world example. If you have a cough medicine and you want to say that the cough medicine is the best, then you need to get regulatory approval needed to say that. Now, obviously, in the UK specifically, you're not allowed to say that. You can't say that you're the best cough medicine, so you need to change that message to make it legal. And maybe you change that message to something that you have approval to say, or you have maybe you've seen your summary of product characteristics to say, actually, fastest working cough medicine is fine, and then your billboard essentially will say that. The message is then received, and then we have our consumer performance action that we want. So that's a little bit more of a roundabout way that we all have to deal with the regulated industries in terms of doing our marketing. So when it comes to SEO within restricted and licensed industries, we have that person looking for cough medicine. And remember, we're going back to SEO. We're trying to find them as they're trying to actively seek out what they want. So they search for best cough medicine. We run into a bit of a problem with this because, of course, we can't say best cough medicine in our content or our website. So this is what makes doing SEO within restricted industries, like, as I say, playing a video game in hard mode. It makes things a little bit more tricky. So we're going to go through today about how we can do this when we're restricted. And I think the biggest tip that I can give you, or the biggest learning that I have learned over my course of 7 years of doing this, or maybe 8 years of doing this, is don't stop before you've started. And this is a golden rule. A lot of people will think, or marketing teams, or teams that you're part of, or people that you speak to when you have roundtable meetings, discussions about what marketing you're going to do, will say, okay, well, the hassle involved in doing this and the potential extra costs are too difficult or too high. So let's just sweep it under the carpet and kind of either do it on a low level or not do it at all. This is a really disastrous move, and it can really backfire if that's the path that you choose to take, because competitors will get a jump on you when they figure out SEO themselves. And your brand could be huge. It could be a massive brand within your industry sector. But if you don't have a very good online presence where people can't find what you're providing quickly or very well, then you can find yourself slipping very quickly down that pecking order. You're also missing out on an extremely valuable user who's trying to find you. And in fact, in restricted industries, this user is worth a lot more than in other industries, because quite often we find ourselves in positions in regulated industries of people looking for a distressed purchase, or perhaps a purchase they don't want to make too public about, in terms of billboards, or you might be restricted in terms of your offline advertising that you can do. So actually, this person's worth a lot more to us within restricted industries anyway. So that's why it's really important that we need to look at these people. So another way that we can, another way that we can look at, another tip that we can give in terms of SEO and doing it within regulated industries is looking at Google, EAT and compliance, which is what Amelia is going to look at right now.
So what is EAT? Unfortunately, it's not my dinner. EAT actually stands for expertise, authority and trustworthiness, which is a mouthful. It's actually a standard that Google expects all your money or your life sites to meet in order to rank well. All commercial websites are YMYL sites, and that just essentially means it's a website that either sells something or offers information about your health or finances or anything like that that can really make a real impact on people's lives. Really important stuff. Often the regulator of your industry will also have similar goals. They want to ensure your customers get the correct information and are advertised to appropriately. And the most recent Broadcore algorithm updates have actually placed a really high importance on sites demonstrating good EAT. Referencing. So how many of us can remember Harvard referencing from writing our dissertations? And I'm crunching up thinking about it. But actually referencing your sources in online articles or online content with a link if you can. It's actually really good for establishing trust in what you're saying. That is, assuming your references, sources are trustworthy. And including them sends a really good signal to Google that your content's trustworthy and accurate. So it's good for SEO too. And over time, you might actually be able to use the reference links as part of an outreach campaign or even social media. So, for example, if you've referenced someone in your article, they may well want to share it on their socials or even link back to you from a follow-up article on their sites. It's a win-win. So essentially referencing ticks boxes for EAT for Google as well. So it's well worth doing. Accessibility. So yeah, by making your website as accessible as possible, you're actually opening it up to a wider market. Many accessibility features have a positive impact on SEO as well. So it's simple things like ensuring all your images have alternative text, or often called alt tags. So that's, essentially if the image is chosen with care, you can also slip in a keyword as well, which is always useful. Or even making sure form fields can be tabbed between rather than making someone rely on a mouse, because some people with disabilities can't actually use a mouse, but they can use keyboard to tab between keys to move about on a page. It's really simple stuff, but it's often overlooked.
I think you'd agree that it usually is overlooked.
Yeah, it usually is. and security as well. Another thing that's overlooked, shouldn't be. But poor site security can have a real negative impact on indexing. Really, Google doesn't want to index anything that may harm their users. You know, for example, if a site has been hacked to kind of take users' contact details or their card details, Google doesn't want to show that to them. They don't want to land on that page. So yeah, keeping on top of site security and closing up any potential loopholes that could be exploited is likely to really help improve Google's trust, the T and E's in the website, and can really help increase the likelihood of pages being indexed and ranked. So what doesn't need to change? Technical SEO. Technical SEO can still be addressed in restricted industries. So when I talk about technical SEO, that's all the bits and bobs under the hood of the site that help the search engines find your pages and the content. For the majority of SEO clients, we would typically start with a technical audit, and this is no different from restricted industries. And actually, you know, with our retainer clients, we tend to do, you know, yearly at least technical SEO audits. I kind of think of it as a bit like being like an MOT on your car. You just want to make sure that everything's working as you want it to, and that it's all good, really. So yeah, getting the technical foundations right on a website can make a huge difference to site speed, crawlability, and ultimately indexing and ranking as well. Although it should be noted that the impact will be more of a blanket effect rather than influencing individual rankings for individual keywords.
Just before we move on to the next slide, I think it's worth mentioning that I've worked in SEO for 8 years, and I don't think I've ever done a fully perfect technical report for a website. I don't know about you, but there's usually one. There's always something.
There's always compromises to be made, but it's as much for us to know about those issues so that we can, you know, kind of pull on other levers and things like that as well.
Absolutely.
On-site SEO. So again, you know, even in restricted industries, you can get the on-site SEO right. There might be some restrictions of the use of language. You know, Nick was talking about, you know, the best confidence, and obviously you wouldn't be able to put that on there, but the basics won't ever change. So paying attention to on-site factors such as title tags, heading tags, and other important elements can have a real impact on rankings and site traffic. And authority building, also known as link building or outreach, is essentially the activity around obtaining backlinks to your website. At Fountain, we actually advise that the best method of gaining backlinks is through digital PR, because that's the best way of getting backlinks from authoritative and trustworthy websites, always going back to the E. Google counts backlinks as being a little bit like votes, but it is important to remember that it's not a democratic system because some votes or links are actually worth more than others if the linking site is trustworthy. Even within restricted industries, you can gain significant results from digital PR activity and stay within the regulations too.
Thanks. So the next little tip that we can give with regards to doing SEO within regulated industries, or restricted industries, or licensed industries, whatever way you want to term it, is talking to your regulatory bodies. Now, my experience of doing this, I've always had a dialogue with regulatory bodies, and I think it's extremely important to ask questions. I mean, this is all quite complicated stuff. It can be quite difficult and a bit of a pain, you know, compliance and restrictions and that sort of way, but it doesn't actually have to be that way. And I think what's really important about this is these regulations are there for a reason. They're there to keep your customers safe. Sorry, my lights have just turned off in this room. They're on the sensors, so they turn off automatically. We're sitting too still. So the regulations are there to keep customers safe. So whether you sell mortgages or spirits, alcoholic spirits that is, or medicines, they are there for your customer safety. They've been put into law because of that reason. And, you know, once you understand that is a point, you can work in harmony with those laws. An analog that I can draw it to is within health and safety. Health and safety culture within a company is really important to the actual implementation of the health and safety regulations. If the regulation, if people don't care about it still, even though you might have the perfect regulation set up in the world for your health and safety, it's still an unsafe place. And again, if people are actively getting confused or fighting about what these regulations are there for, then you might already run into some trouble. I've always found that holding discussions with regulators and trade bodies to be extremely useful for the sole reason is that I've come to realise that the rules or the law and all of the law hasn't just appeared on ancient stone tablets that have come down from heaven and we have to live by them. They have been written by human beings, and as a result, they can have grey areas. They can be not quite 100% accurate. They can be out of date. So they are always open to interpretation. And the regulator that you work with, or the trade body that you work with, is usually more than happy to provide clarification to your concerns or questions on the regulations. So sometimes you might actually find that something you thought that was going to be an outright no, which is obviously the title of this seminar, when the regulator says no, the regulator might not actually say no. They might say, actually, this will be okay if you do this, this, and this, or something along those lines. So that's why it's so important to hold discussions with the regulator and have a relationship with them. And the other thing about having discussions with the regulator is really important. And this is if your industry has a trade body as well, and your trade body will be doing this, which is brilliant, and this is what they should be doing, is that SEO is here to stay as a form of marketing, like any other form of digital marketing. And your industry can't afford to fall behind. So it's in your regulator's interests and your industry's interests to make sure that concerns are acted upon and the regulations can even, or they're open to being changed in the future to reflect our changing marketing landscape. I think the next tip that I can give you, which is tied in with regulatory bodies really, is regarding getting sign-off. This is probably the thing that people find most difficult with regards to working with licensed industries or working with regulations, because bureaucracy is difficult. It can be hard to deal with, but it is an inevitability when we're doing this because we have to get sign-off, we have to contact our regulatory bodies, we have to contact our trade bodies to do what we need to do. But there are ways we can make it easier. And like I say, you know, so streamlining is so important because this process can become incredibly cumbersome, especially if it, you know, and it can seem counterproductive, especially if there's extra costs involved. Perhaps you know, the agency that you hired may need to do extra costs, or the freelancer has to get it approved, whatever. It can be quite difficult. But if you have a plan in place right from the start to try and streamline that process where everybody's involved and everybody agrees as how they're going to do that, then that's half the battle won. And when I say a plan, I don't mean just in one person's head. I mean an actual written document or whatever, Miro board or wherever you want to do it, to say, actually, this is the process that we're going to follow, and we're going to do that for every single time. It's going to streamline it as well as possible. Everybody knows who's going to contact who, and that's how we're going to do it. And the other thing about trying to deal with getting approval is that things are going to be slower than the ideal. If you go back to our original marketing flowchart that I looked at earlier in the presentation, we see that there is literally almost like a block in the way of doing a lot of the marketing. Unfortunately, that is always going to be there. So things are going to be a little bit slower. And it might take a couple more days to try and get things turned around. And it's important that everybody and all your stakeholders know that's fine. We don't have to rush things. We don't have to do it so quickly and in a panic and worry about the time and stuff it's going to take, because we know it's going to take time. As long as you plan for that time, we should all be fine. And in talking about planning for things and knowing what your stakeholders expect, perfection is not possible when it comes to this, which sounds like a really odd thing for me to say, but Google doesn't really care about you, your brand, your budgets, or whatever advertising restrictions you might have. Sounds like very harsh advice, but Google is a business. Google wants to provide its customers with what they want. What they want is an answer or a response to their search term. It doesn't matter if you have a regulation that stops you from saying it, because Google still wants you to provide it. And sometimes you might be faced with a black and white situation where you need to turn down the best SEO option to be regulatory compliant, whether that comes with technical SEO, whether it comes with content, or whether it comes with digital PR. There probably will be an instance where that has to happen. But again, that's fine, as long as everybody and all your stakeholders understand that that's the case. Because ultimately, Google doesn't care if you legally can't say it. It doesn't factor into their algorithm. So we're going to have a little case study on a client that we work with here at Fountain. Just before we dive into that, I'm just going to mention we are taking questions at the end of this presentation. On your Zoom, you should see at the bottom a button that says Q&A. There's a little list where you can type in the question that you want, and we'll see them as a little list at the end, and we can go through some of those questions at the end, and hopefully nobody will trip us up, and we should be able to answer them. But if you'd like to do that over the next 5 minutes, and we can take some of those questions at the end.
I'll talk about LO1. So LO1 is the most effective morning after pill available in the UK. You can see I've made this compliant, that statement there, because I've put the verified link there. There you go. So the LO1 website had actually been negatively impacted by an algorithm update back in 2018 and hadn't been able to recover from the lost rankings and traffic. So yeah, it's in a pretty dire straits. We actually began working with them in January 2020, and the website was redeveloped with a new design, new pages, new content, etc. And the new site actually went live in February 2020. We assisted with the technical implementations to ensure it was a smooth site migration and with limited traffic loss. And actually, within 3 months of us working with LO1, their organic traffic had actually grown by 120% year on year. And here's some more recent results. Hopefully they'll show up. So this is comparing the first half of 2019 to the first half of 2022. I didn't include sort of the lockdown periods because you know, we're talking about products that's bought when people have mixed and people were not able to mix. So here we go. So 112% increase in organic impressions, 96% increase in organic clicks, amazing, 1,361% increase in organic traffic, and my absolute favourite one, a 91% increase in organic transactions from the website.
And I think it's testament, really, all of these stats to what we were saying earlier in the presentation, which is this is how important that person is who's trying to find your product, and you have to try and then seek them out yourself, and they find you. And LO1 is a perfect example because the person who's trying to buy LO1 or is looking for a morning after pill is probably going to be in a stress situation, and they're also wanting to be fairly subtle about it potentially, and you know they're going to be asking a lot of questions because it might be something they might not.
They'll be asking lots of questions. It's a time sensitive purchase as well because you know you've only got a certain period of time in which you can take this product and it will be effective, and the longer you leave it, obviously the less effective it is. So, you know, the advice is to take it as quickly as possible, etc., etc. So, you know, we need to get that person who's searching for morning after pill or for, you know, the most effective morning after pill. They're searching for that, and our website is available for them, and they can purchase it on the site. So thank you for listening.
Yes, thanks for listening to our webinar today.